a master who may not be skilled, a Scrum Master perspective. Over to you, Mr. Rajat.
Yeah, thank you. Hey, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen who've joined this talk. I am really grateful for you to take out your personal time from a Sunday afternoon and listening to us on this topic. I'll start with just a quick introduction of myself. My name is Rajat. I head the India Delivery Centers for a company called Trantor. Trantor is a US-based corporation based out of Menlo Park, California, and we have our presence in Chandigarh and NCR region in India. So I'm also an active mentor to startups in Chandigarh region specifically because I belong from Chandigarh, born and brought up here. So extensive experience, fortunate enough to work with customers across different verticals, from retail, healthcare, finance, banking, technology, legal, marketing, and publishing verticals. So let's get started. So basically, this is our perspective. I work with my teams very closely to set up our organization. I've worked with multiple teams in the past, as I said. So I've had a first-hand experience of working with or setting up agile teams, and a lot of times failing and identifying what went wrong, and in a retrospective. So this is our perspective or my perspective in specific, where we want to tell everyone that even if we become a Scrum Master, a certified Scrum Master, may still be a master who may not be skilled. So let's start with who is the Scrum Master. The guy here in the red cap says I am the Scrum Master. So in a Scrum team, which is a small, nimble team, small enough to be nimble and large enough to deliver an incremental shippable value to our product in any sprint. So it's a Scrum Master is one role. There are three different accountabilities or role as defined by Scrum Guide, which is product owner, Scrum Master, and the development team. So you've got one Scrum Master in each of the Scrum teams. All right. So let's say what does the Scrum Guide talks about Scrum Master? How does the Scrum Guide defines the Scrum Master? Say the Scrum Master is responsible for promoting and supporting Scrum as defined in the Scrum Guide. This is a very important line, as defined in the Scrum Guide. I'm not sure if how many of you would have experience interviewing Scrum Masters or working with them who would tell you quite often that we do Scrum, but it's our own version of the Scrum. But what the guide says is responsible for promoting and supporting Scrum as defined in the Scrum Guide. And how do they do it? They do it by coaching and making sure the team understands theory, practices, rules, and values of Scrum. Right? Scrum Master is accountable for the Scrum team's effectiveness. Again, a very important line. Scrum Master is accountable towards Scrum team's effectiveness. And they do it by making sure the team learns, evolves, and continuously improve within the Scrum framework, and not change by changing the Scrum framework. Okay. So as a Scrum Master, we've got three target audiences for ourselves: product owner, Scrum team, and organization. And for all these different stakeholders, we wear a different cap and play a different role in making each one of these successful in their Scrum and Agile objectives, in the product that they are working on, so overall business and product objectives too. So with the product owner, Scrum Master will play more of an advisory and coach role, while the Scrum team, for the Scrum teams, he or she needs to play a good mentor, a coach, facilitator, and even servant leadership has to be there. And as far as organizations are concerned, it's more of a coaching and facilitation. That how do you go and implement Scrum beyond just one product? How do you adopt it in the larger perspective, at the organization level? What are the different impediments that block our organizational objectives? How do we solve them? Removing barriers between stakeholders and the Scrum teams, right? And as I said, on the Scrum team side, very important to understand how the Scrum functions. What are the different key basics and fundamental things that needs to be in place, as good as having a qualified or a curated product backlog, which is well defined, having a definition of that. I'm pretty sure most of you would know that, but this is typically what Scrum Master would play a role for different stakeholders. So in order to be a successful Scrum Master and cater to the three stakeholders or three target audience, a Scrum Master needs to play variety of roles. A good Scrum Master would know them, And it's very important for that, Scrum Master, whether it's a, someone who's really new or someone who's been experienced, they need to know, depending upon which situation and context, which gap they have to build for that particular target audience. So impediment remover, facilitator, coach, teacher, servant leader, manager, change agent, mentor. These are more of a roles rather than designation, that are given in a Scrum team. So all these roles are required to be played effectively by this Scrum Master, right? In order to accomplish or enable the team to move towards achieving a common product goal. So to summarize, Scrum Master is one of the three Scrum team roles. He or she is accountable for Scrum team's effectiveness. Again, a very big statement, and needs to play multiple roles in order to make sure the team gets successful, right? So this is very challenging. It seems very challenging, full of excitement. Now the question is, how do I become a Scrum Master? Here's the process that you need to follow to become a Scrum Master. You register for a professional Scrum Master training, attend a 2-day course, schedule an exam, write the exam, clear the exam, and boom, you're done. So getting a training, attending a 2 day course, clearing the exam, you need to pass the exam for sure. So that gives you a master title. You become a master in doing just 2 days of course, probably doing some mock exams, giving the exam a certification examination, and boom, you are a master now. What does the certification covers? Certification covers typically your Scrum framework knowledge, which is Scrum theory, practices, values, rules, and guides. What it does not cover is your ability or your capabilities on the foundational skill that will make you a good Scrum Master, which are your coaching abilities, your mentoring abilities, servant leadership skills, conflict management skills, facilitation skills, change control skills. So now what happens is, you know, you know, typically are usually everyone, whether in IT domain or not in IT domain, would expect masters to be subject matter experts. They've achieved a certain level of proficiency in their work. That's why we call master blaster Sachin Tendulkar, right? The guy has a certain level of proficiency and expertise in his subject and his sports. So similarly, Scrum Masters are also expected to be Scrum subject matter experts, and they're seen as dependable role who would help the team, Scrum team, the product owner, and the organization at large to accomplish the objectives for which the Scrum team was set up. Okay. However, if we do not have those foundational skills, we may end up setting up a tailored process in our organization, which is nothing but Scrum. And that leads to loss of trust and confidence to deliver upon our expected values and goals. So you lose trust, you lose confidence, you are almost at the verge of being unsuccessful, not in the personal capacity but in the team's capacity as well. So by having these certifications, you may become a master, but not having foundational skills will make you a master who may not be skilled. Okay, so this talk is to emphasize that it is not about just the certification. Certification is a validation of your knowledge on a particular subject, but there's a way beyond that subject which is required and which is also assumed, by the Scrum authorities, that you understand what your core qualities are, and on top of that, you are taking Scrum knowledge, getting it audited and verified to achieve your personal goals to act as a leader in a particular ecosystem. So how do you become a successful? And if certification is not sufficient in itself, how do we even approach to be a good or an effective Scrum Master? You need to have a vision. You know, you need to know, why do you even want to become one? Why do you want to become a Scrum Master? Would you become a Scrum Master if we change the title or not? Would you still give your 100% if it was called as, let's say, for example, Scrum Conductor? Like you have an orchestra conductor who's organized, making all the orchestra instruments work in a way to give music to your ears. So would you go and apply for a certification which would not have a word master in its title, but probably a conductor? So you must be very clear, why do you want to be a Scrum Master, and are you ready to invest and give your 100% into it. So once you have a clear vision, you have the answer of why, then you check, do you possess foundational skills that are required to play various roles effectively? And if not, then you work on them as well. So like coaching, mentoring, servant leadership, facilitation, as we just checked in the previous slide, these are the pillars for you to be successful in this role. Now, once you have the fundamental or the foundational skills, now is your Scrum knowledge and expertise. Do you have Scrum knowledge and expertise? If not, you build those, build that, and you get audited and verified through a certification. And then you put your knowledge to a practical use. When you put your knowledge to a practical use, you learn a lot of things which were, may seem a bit different in theory, but when you're, implementing that in your practical implementation, the projects, and you're experiencing that knowledge firsthand through the practical experience, you would gain a greater meaning of what you had learned in theory. And through that experience, you would be able to excel in every next project where you would implement Scrum or you would act as a Scrum Master. Right? So like simple saying, the practice makes the man perfect is just that. But if you do not have that vision clear, you do not have a right roadmap or a path to work on this, your journey of Scrum Master. Now, why did we even think about it? Why did I even thought about talking on this topic where you can be a master but may not be skilled? So what happened in the last 1 year? We've been aggressively hiring, and we had to hire agile coach, we had to hire product owners, we had to hire scrum masters and developers. So what we saw was that we interviewed almost more than 100 scrum masters across India, and we were not able to shortlist even 5 of the candidates who we would sort of like to put in front of the clients and say these are the ones who are going to work on your different projects. And the reason for that was, all of them were good engineers. They had good understanding of their actual domain. So there are a lot of people who are coming from quality control department. They're coming from development department. Somebody was business analyst and now moving into Scrum role. They were really good at what they were doing originally. But when they come and interview for Scrum, 95% of people were like, when the question was asked, are you really following Scrum? The answer was, you know what, may not be how the guide says, but we have our own version of Scrum that we do. We fail sometimes, but we're unable to do it because either the organization is not supporting it, or bottom top approach is not supporting, where developers and the development teams are not fully trained on that. So you have one person who's trained and the rest of the gang is not trained. Now just imagine how that ecosystem would look like. And they were all practical challenges that they were discussing. So the one curiosity we had was that Scrum team is a small team which has only one Scrum Master, one product owner, but at least 5 to 7 developers. So that means the developer pool should be made much higher than Scrum Master too, right? So when we looked at the facts, 345,000 Scrum Masters across the globe are available. So you have one Scrum Master for one product or one Scrum team, and you have, let's say, on safer side, 5 to 7 developers in the same team. So if you look at the proportion in this diagram, we have got 340,000 plus Scrum Masters, 87,000, 75% steep fall for the product owners, and it further goes down to developers at 12,000 plus people only. So the maximum number of volume, if I talk about the maximum volume of the role wise, the role is of developers. So 7 developers, 1 Scrum Master, and 1 product owner. Ideally, the developers should have been the highest in number, certified Scrum certified developers. Ironically, they are the lowest one. And if we look at our interview feedbacks or assessment, the majority of perception that we had from all the interviews and the interaction was the majority of people were not even clear what the Scrum Master role is and what level of proficiency, subject matter proficiency and the core skills are required. They're even aware about it. So, but most of the people went ahead for the certification because it had a title or the word, master in the title. They actually become a master of something in just 2 days to 1 week time frame. If I had to do a Master of Business Administration, a computer application, I would invest 2 years or 3 years somewhere. But if I have to be a master and a leader in the Scrum world, I can be that in just 2 days at minimum, or like less than a week's time. When this happens, when people go for certifications and they are not clear on what their role is going to be, for example, like I really liked one candidate who was excellent in the quality control background with 12 years of experience, and you know, she's been 2 years into Scrum field and playing a Scrum Master role, and she said now I aspire to go for product owner certification and others. When we look at her journey, she had all the accolades of very good growth in last 9 to 10 years as far as she was doing quality control work. But the moment she started doing Scrum, her performance growth chart came down. Her dissatisfaction was high. She was always looking for more opportunities. She has given maximum number of interviews in last 1.5 years, and that is when she went into a Scrum Master role. And so what we understood was that when people are put in a role which was more because of the title and not because of the capability or vision behind it, they will never be successful. Look at the data on the right side on the Naukri.com. 50% of the world's Scrum Masters are actually in India. And out of that 50%, 84% are actively looking for a job. 99,000 plus people in last 6 months have updated their resume, saying, and they have shown interest in finding a new job. Just last 3 days, 18,000 plus people. So if we are certified masters, why are we not able to be successful? This is a question for everyone. Like if I am a Scrum Master, why would be job hopping? One of the reasons is that I'm looking for other opportunities because I'm not feeling accomplished in my current role. And that's what each of them spoke about. We are not doing Scrum as defined. We are doing the way our organization defines it, or the way my team defines it. And most of the problem occurs because Scrum Masters would not have the foundational skills that are required to steer or drive the Scrum teams in a direction which is focused towards achieving the common goals of the product and the business. But it's human to blame others, and we start venting out or sharing that organization is not doing it. Oh, what? There's no help from the top. There's no help from the bottom. And I'm the one who's the expert because I have a certificate of Scrum Master and I know what's best. And that's why I'm looking for another opportunity, because nothing can be fixed in my current organization. So when we are supposed to play different roles, you require skills to play those roles as well. For example, we talked about facilitator as one of the roles. A Scrum Master helps the Scrum teams to use best practices to conduct ceremonies. There are impediments in the team that requires a removal, effective removal, discussion. Scrum Master would facilitate those as well. Their targets to be achieved, the goals to be achieved. So Scrum Master is not helping you code. Scrum Master is not making decisions. It's just he or she is facilitating various activities so that we can ensure our objectives are being met on time. We are delivering the incremental shippable value of our products. So in order to be a good facilitator, there are certain traits or again, skills that you require, or one would require good communication. So if you do not have good communication skills, and with good communication, I don't mean you need an American accent or a UK accent. It's good even if you have an Indian accent or a thick accent, but as long as you can articulate your thought process and communicate, the essence of what you want to communicate to the receiver of the communication, I think we're fine. So good communication skills are must, because you need to facilitate, you need to understand and listen the perspective of your team as well. So active listening is again a big trait or a big skill that a good Scrum Master would require, because otherwise, if you do not listen out what your team is saying, you would not be able to do justice because you have not understood the ask clearly. You need to develop in synergies. You need to be empath. You just cannot go blasting people here and there. You need to probe if something is wrong, and you need to have skills of effective reasoning. It's very important, not just as a facilitator, but when you're acting as a negotiator or problem solver. You need to reason. You just cannot take anything as no as what comes your way, but you must reason intelligently and explain why something can be done and why something cannot be done. As a facilitator, you need to conduct your ceremonies or help team conduct their ceremonies in a time boxed manner. So you need to have time management skills. You cannot be biased. If there's a conflict situation and you're facilitating a conflict resolution, you need to stay neutral. You cannot be biased to one and not to other, right? And as a facilitator, you need to be disciplined enough to record outcomes so that you can share the data. So all these skills are required in an individual if that person needs to be a good facilitator. And in order to be a good Scrum Master, you need to be a good facilitator. So these becomes essential aspects, and these are not being tested anywhere, right? So when you hire, or if I am a Scrum Master who aspires to be one, I must do my self-assessment and see how I can improve in these skills, because this will further help me be a good Scrum Master. Scrum Master as a coach or a mentor, a lot of work of Scrum Master revolves around coaching and mentoring as well, not just to the Scrum team, but to the product owner and most of the times organizations as well. In my last discussion also, there was a question, you know, would Scrum implementation and the process improvement would happen from bottom to top or top to bottom? It works in both ways, right? But you need to understand, organization, team, and product owner all are Scrum Master's target audience. So the coaching is required at each level so that all understand what is the common objective and goal we're trying to accomplish, why we are doing this in the first way. Once that is understood, the acceptability of coaching or mentoring also goes up. So an effective Scrum Master would always coach the Scrum team and stakeholders about value-driven approach. Focus, have the team focus on goals, continuous improvement, collaboration, best practices, guiding principles as defined in the Scrum Guide. So in order to be an effective coach, what do you need? You need again effective communication. You need to build rapport with your team. You need to be empath. You need to provide instructions and explanation of why something is being done. It's not about please go and write a login page code. You need to explain what are we trying to accomplish and what is the right way to do it. So you would always give instruction of choose the best way to do it, but let the best way be identified by the subject matter experts in your team. You're not giving them instruction to write, algorithmic instruction that here is the way you would write code. You don't do that, right? You just ask them, here is the user story, the problem we're trying to solve, and this needs to be, resolved as per the product owner's prioritization and, definition of done. So what kind of instructions are given? What kind of explanations are given? What kind of tools and methods do you use to coach the team? Your observation skills, the way you give feedback goes a long way. So these skills are required for you to be an effective coach. Again, effective coach is one of the roles and responsibility that Scrum Master is supposed to be playing. Impediment remover, when we work with people, we're working towards complex problems to be solved, there would be impediments. And as a Scrum Master, we are required to work towards resolving them effectively. So that anything that is stopping us from achieving our objectives can be resolved and put to rest. Now, every leader would have their own, I would say, ways to resolve impediments. So we're not getting into what is the right way or what's the wrong way, but definitely you need similar skill set to be an impediment remover as well. For example, prioritizing the conflict resolution instead of being right. Like if I'm a Scrum Master, I don't want to show everybody that I'm right. My objective was to resolve a conflict, not to appear as the person who's right in the forum. Active listening. If we don't listen, I don't understand the problem, there would be easy fix for me that I can implement because I've not understood the ask itself. You need to be patient with uh, people, because if there are problems with people, there's problem with the process. We need to first of all understand the root cause behind it. And doing a root cause analysis or 5 analysis, whatever you want to do, requires patience. You cannot be biased and sort of motivated with your thought process that without even concluding something, we sort of make our mind that we know that what the problem is. So you need to have patience as well. You cannot be impartial. Sorry, I mean, so you cannot be partial to one person or one team than other. So you have to have, impartiality, and you have to have empath with your team members or stakeholders. There must be an open and transparent communication. If we don't build trust internally, there's no way we are going to build trust externally with our business and the, business stakeholders or even the target audience of the product that we're trying to build. Always be effective and respectful in your communication. As I said, it's not about accent. In some teams it may not be about language, but effectiveness of your communication and the way you communicate respectfully goes way along. When we are trying to solve conflicts, specifically in conflict management, it goes way long, and you earn a lot of respect. When you earn a lot of respect and trust, it simply bumps up your probability of being an effective Scrum Master. Now, Scrum Master is a servant leadership. There's a lot of text available, a lot of books on servant leadership. This term has gained a lot of popularity since our PM has started using that too. But again, as a servant leader, the whole focus of Scrum Master is to make sure team accomplishes their goals, you know, which are in line with organization values, principles, and objectives. But the ultimate objective is that we enable the team to be successful. We step in wherever we see there is a scope for improvement, or we need to take care of our team and make sure that they are aligned towards their common objectives that are well defined for the team. So again, effective communication, active listening, empathy, we've discussed these, persuasion, foresight, stewardship, commitment to the growth, building community, these all skills, they go hand in hand. But because now we're talking about leadership skills, that's why we get into foresight, stewardship, awareness about your own subject and the product as well goes a long way. If you do not understand the problem that you're trying to solve, or your team is trying to solve, you may not be able to provide them the right leadership that is required. If you don't understand your domain for which you're building a product, it again may restrict you from being, persuasive in any sort of your solution that you want to propose to your team. So your ability to lead the team in resolving their uh, technology challenges, domain challenges, process challenges would always get restricted if you do not have much knowledge on that particular subject. Not that you are expected to have it, but when you're in the servant leadership role and you're expected to give them solution, the more you are aware, the more knowledgeable you are, really goes a long way in, making you successful as a servant leader. Scrum Master as a change control. A lot of people talk about this, that Scrum would ensure that we can make changes as and when we go, but once the sprint is set, then we don't accept changes. So a lot of time the question comes in, can you really accept a change within a sprint? What if it's not a 2 week sprint, it's a 4 week sprint, and somebody really wants a change? And how do you control that? Why would you always go and say, no, we don't allow the change in the middle of the sprint? You can do that actually, right? So a good Scrum Master would always act as a change controller who controls and enables a culture of value-driven change management. If change is centered towards bringing an immediate value or a value towards a target audience or the product, it should be accommodated. It should not be said no. There's always a trade-off that you can do where we're bringing in 10 points, we're taking out 10 points, but the reason we are making this change is that we believe that this change is going to maximize our value that is we're trying to deliver to our target audience, or maybe speed up if not maximize, give them early. So a good change controller would always be again neutral on whether the change needs to be accepted or not, and would not simply say, no, this is what my peer told me, that once the script print is set up, we will not accommodate any change. That doesn't work like that. So uh, good Scrum Master would always have the change controller function work to, using value driven change management, right? So how would you do that? You would again need effective communication. You will need ability to reason. You would need to be a problem solver. You need to build the trust with all your stakeholders, and you build your trust with open communication, transparent communication, showing that you know what you're talking about. You've shown through your, historic achievements as well. So a lot of these things go hand in hand. So, as you see this, that in the At the most common or basic level, the skills are almost the same, no matter what role are you playing at, playing as a Scrum Master. But these are the skills that are required. And if you do not have these skills, you may not be a very effective Scrum Master and you may not be successful as well. So as a Scrum Master, you need to invest in building these skills, which are again, just to summarize, Scrum expertise, needless to say, you need the subject matter expertise, strategic thinking, because you're working with organization, you're coaching organization, senior management too. You need strategic thinking, observing, you need to observe. You're not a dictator there. You need to observe and then act accordingly. So good communication skills, empathy skills, problem solving, reasoning and negotiations, time management, active listening, awareness, very important, context driven and goal oriented. You just cannot do without this one. Trust building. So all of these skill sets are required in the Scrum Master, because Scrum Master is accountable for effective implementation of the Scrum team. The overall effectiveness of the Scrum team is responsibility and accountability of Scrum Master. And if you want to do that, you want to do justice to that role, you must have all these skills in you. And if you do not have, you need to build those skills in you. Okay. So what are the key takeaways? You must understand, why do you want to be a Scrum Master? If you do not understand why do you want to be a Scrum Master, and you just want to go for it because there's a title of a master in it, I don't think so. You're doing justice to your money. I don't think you're doing justice to yourself. Do whatever you aspire to do and do it best. As I asked the question, would you like to go for this role if the title was changed to Scrum Conductor? And if not, you have the answer that, most of the people, as I said, were not clear why they wanted to do this role. Why not be a project manager? Why not be a product owner? Why master? Why don't be a product, professional Scrum developer? Why not go for safe certifications? Why only master? So there's definitely something to the title, but don't get sort of carried away with the title. Have your answer first. Why do you want to be one? you know and if you want to be a successful Scrum Master, then invest in building foundational skills along with the Scrum knowledge and certification. I am in no way undermining the value of certification. Certification is required. It increases the confidence in your capabilities. It tells us that you have been verified about your Scrum knowledge. However, you must continuously invest in building your foundational skills. Okay. So if you're a leader who's responsible to set up the agile teams, then do not make certification as the only criteria for selecting Scrum Master roles. I'm not saying that this should not be the criteria. All we're saying is this should not be the only criteria to hire Scrum Master role. Their knowledge of Scrum should not be the only criteria to be assessed upon. So you need them to be, you would want your Scrum Master to be assessed on foundational skills as well. You may get a low selection to onboarding ratio because there will be a lot of rejections, but in a way you are helping other candidates also to understand where they lack, give them the feedback, help them be successful in their next interviews or in their next journey by telling that constructive feedback that we need, in our organization, if you really want to be part of our team, we want people to be smart people. We want to have, our folks or our team members to possess all those foundational, fundamental skills that will make them successful in a particular role they're striving for. So in our case, it's a Scrum Master's role, right? So, please tell them all those things, that wherever they lack as far as foundational skills are concerned, if it's your internal team, you may have a training program internally to build Scrum Masters. So in the training program, build foundational skills as well. Train them on foundational skills, because that will go really long way in having a very strong, I would say, layer of Scrum Masters, which can further make you successful in your higher business objectives, running successfully various Scrum teams and safe teams. So focus on making your entire Scrum team, in that case, not just the Scrum Master, context driven and goal oriented. Because Scrum Master is accountable for effective Scrum teams, that's why they need to be context driven and goal oriented at minimum. So if you are context driven, you would always be able to correlate things correctly. You will always be able to reason out, with any stakeholder or any of your target audience that you're interacting with. And when you keep your goals as your first priority, you would always derive a solution that is centered towards achieving the goal rather than probably digressing to a different problem, right? Which happens a lot when you're doing negotiations or doing conflict management part as a Scrum Master. So be a master who has all those skills and do justice to being a master. And it is not that you just become a certified master, but who, that certified master may not have the foundational skills to be successful. That certification is not going to help you anywhere. So that's the thought process I wanted to share from our experience of hiring Scrum Masters and setting up agile teams, where we tend to give this feedback to a lot of people in our personal capacity. And in every interview we conduct, or where we would sort of guide or share a constructive feedback with people and probably get in touch with them in local community to also make sure that they have a culture of building the foundational skills and really do justice to their Scrum Master certification and grow in that line instead of just doing a certification for the sake of being a master and not have the right skills, or being a master who may not be skilled. So that's the talk I wanted to share with you all, and I'm open to questions. I can share from my experience.
Rajat, um,
Yeah,
I can read out the questions for you.
sure.
So the question from Amar is,
Mhm.
uh, how Scrum Master role has changed with work from anywhere team member setup now in COVID?
So I don't think so. There's a big change in the role as such because of COVID. See, we were already working in a remote environment as far as customers are concerned. While we were sitting together as a Scrum teams, our customers were already, sitting seven oceans apart. But when we were working together in one premises, there's active collaboration. You could see body language. You could see, people objecting to certain inputs. You would have a better way to deal with them as far as conflict resolution was concerned. Now, lack of collaboration, lack of face time is definitely giving us some challenges in dealing with all these things. But if you work in an organized way as in a small teams, and you keep your cameras on and you have a right wavelength with working with each other, I don't see this as a big challenge. If you are not having a FaceTime on the on your machines or the cameras, then yes, you will start slowly building a disconnect with your team. So if you're actively collaborating, you're actively participating in all the ceremonies, you're still focused towards the goals and working, and probably not getting distracted because of work from home routine, I think things are not that different. But if you're not having a FaceTime, you're not actively engaged with the team, it would have happened that you would actually fail, but that would have been true even if you were in the office and not doing the same things again. So it's just about doing the same things. You are dealing with video collaboration as far as your personal FaceTime in the office was concerned.
All right. Thank you so much for that. So the next question is, how do you think team acclimatization is necessary for a Scrum Master in order to be a true servant leader?
Means why would you think that you don't want to gel well with the team in order to be a servant leader? If we are not cohesive with our team, how can we be even a servant leader? Because at the end of the day, what does a servant leader do? It helps you, you know, um accomplish a team objective. They will, your servant leader will enable team to be successful. And if we are not cohesive with our team members, we don't get to know them, pretty well. We would not know that what are their strengths and weaknesses. How would you be able to even forecast or assess a risk pertaining to their capabilities? You would always be a reactive person if you don't do that. Whereas the expectation as a servant leader is more of a proactive approach. You know where we our shortcomings are and how will we improve based upon the people we have in our team. So you need to know your people well. Only then you can do the justice to the role.
All right. Moving on to the next question. Does Scrum Master need to have a technical experience? I can see lot of JDs like Scrum Master having Java experience with hands-on coding experience.
See, in order to play the Scrum Master role, as I said, Scrum Master is required to wear a lot of hats. So let's say you are not having a knowledge of the technology platform. It's only going to restrict you a bit in giving your responsibility or probably contributing to the best of your abilities as a scrum master in as a conflict resolver or as a servant leader, because you may not need to get into a technical solutioning part of that problem. However, if you have the knowledge, then what happens is that a lot of companies these days, they tend to have a rotational scrum model, scrum master model as well, where team members are encouraged to play a scrum master role in different sprints. So that ways, if you are a technology person, you are also now capable of playing a scrum master role instead of having somebody being dedicated as scrum master across the life of the product, maybe like 2 3 years. So so a lot of companies these days, they try to be more creative and see, rather than having just a one scrum master, how about if we have scrum master in the team when all of the seven are developers too, and one of them will play a scrum master in few sprints. So they do think about this problem in this manner, where we try to use the utilization of our skill sets in the most optimum way, rather than having somebody who is sort of a with a project manager or BA background and being a scrum master. Someone who's more technical may be able to contribute more whenever there are technical conflicts in the team. So if you are a purely non-technical person and you've got team of four developers and two are on one side and two are on the other side, it does makes our life difficult to make a good conscious decision. But if you have a knowledge, may not be an expertise, but if you do have a technology background or a development background, and your reasoning capabilities are strong, your logical capabilities are strong, you'll definitely be able to be much more successful dealing with technical people, rather than totally coming from a non-technical background and then you have to deal with technical people. Because as good as story point estimation, you may be able to facilitate to reduce the gap between how one person is estimating a story versus how another person is doing. But if you do come from a technology background, you can always give them pointers that will help them agree to a particular estimation unit in a much shorter time frame.
All right. The next question is, how much experience should an aspiring Scrum Master have? Can we have fresher graduate certify and become Scrum Master without any experience?
Yeah, you can be a fresher who can be a Scrum Master certified, but then you will be a master who may not be skilled. That's the whole concept of this talk, right? So you don't want to be a Scrum Master as a fresher. Why do you would want to be? Why won't you worry about getting the foundational skills first? See, as I said, ask this question to yourself. Would you go for a Scrum conductor training as a fresher? If you are a fresher, you are a BTech person, I would strongly recommend do not even look at Scrum Master certification, but go for Scrum Developer certification, because you have just come from your engineering background, right? So first understand what it takes to be a good developer. How do you work in an agile way? Apply your knowledge of object-oriented programming skills for first couple of years, because if you're in the start of the career, if you invest your time and energies on developing good programming experience, that will really go a long way when you switch towards getting into management or even scrum master role or a product owner role. But if you do not understand basics of how the fundamental programming concepts can be applied to any software development, you will always be dependent upon somebody else to make you successful. But if you have core fundamental knowledge yourself, it will just carry with you as long as you are there in your career, and will always come as a fruitful savior whenever you are into discussions that require good software engineering skills, not at the level of coding, but even at the business analysis level, at the level of discussing a pre-solution with customers. So I would not recommend that, as a fresher, if you are from engineering background, you went into engineering with the vision to be a software engineer, then you change your course after investing 4 years of your life in software engineering or engineering to be a Scrum Master at the very start of your career. You would not be able to do justice because you may not have all the core skills with you. A lot of those core skills, they require some degree of experience. I'm personally of the belief that we should value skill over experience, but that doesn't mean that you start off with aspiring to go for a title which just has master in it, but you need a lot of practical experience. So gain that first. Go for the knowledge. Believe me, success will follow.
All right, thank you so much for that. The another question is, isn't it even employers who are asking for taglines rather than skills that is driving the certification industry?
I agree, so okay, let's understand there's a demand and there's a supply. Let's not get into employer versus employee. The businesses would try and cater to what customer is asking for. Now, customers are also people like us. So let's say you are a customer who have $100 million as a budget and who's built some products in past, and because of the waterfall approach or probably the marketing of the waterfall approach or the actual experience maybe was that they ended up spending 2 times, 3 times of the budget they had initially planned, and they struggled a lot in ensuring that they get what they had asked for. And now there's a new framework in the market that says, what, this framework would actually allow you to, send as many changes as possible to the development team, unlike waterfall. Previously, that customer has faced pain that every time I'll ask for something, the development team would come back and say, this is not part of the specification, this is a change. Now, they've had that experience over the years, and they really do not like that change management protocol that was initiated even when they thought they are just trying to clarify what was asked for and they necessarily did not ask for change. So there's a huge disconnect between the business versus the engineering team that's working on it. And now somebody has told them there's a new framework in the market. We have used it for the last 3, 4 years. It worked pretty well for us. Nobody raises change request. Now your customer goes to a company. Let's say you are part of, you are, Trantor as an organization. Customer comes to me and say, we want to work only in Scrum because that will allow us to get changes whenever needed without us having to worry about change requests. That's what I learned from my peer or my colleague who also, owns certain software products. Now they're asking for a Scrum team. So as a company, we have to give them a Scrum team. We understand the requirements are not well written. There's a lot of research that needs to happen. And how do we set up the Scrum team? We need to have the three main stakeholders: product owner, Scrum Master, and the Scrum developers. Now, the company is not saying, or the employer is not asking you to be a Scrum Master for the sake of being a Scrum Master, or they are not asking or willing to take people who are only Scrum Master by certification. Like us, we are not hiring people because of the certification. We are hiring to see, is the person a right fit or not, to play that role. So it's not the employers who are asking you to get married to a designation or run for Scrum Master. You know, employers need more developers, and you can talk to any employer. They would be more than happy to hire Scrum certified developers because every team would have 7 developers and one Scrum Master for each 7. So demand should be higher for developers. So every team would need the right fit because in the management, as just compare it to engineers, you want to hire a good AWS cloud operations guy. You would ask them to show that are you certified on AWS because that increases your credentials. Similarly, if you are a Scrum Master, certification increases your credentials. But that doesn't mean that we should not be assessing you on your skills, or that doesn't mean that we're advocating or the employer is advocating and only marketing about a certification. You hire a lot of project managers, that are there in Indian IT industry. Maybe 50% of them would be certified, rest may not be even certified, but they're good managers because of their experience and their knowledge. I hope I've been able to answer your question. If not, you can just type and I can explain more. But it's not the employers who are building a culture of running towards a certification. In fact, as managers, it is our job when we are doing the interviews and selection, we identify the right fit for our organization. You build a culture of going after knowledge instead of going after fancy certification. Mandatory certifications are anyways required. If you are a art student and our HR has a policy that will only hire BTech, you need a BTech certification. You can't do anything about it.
All right. Um, so I believe we are, uh, due to the time constraints, I believe we should be wrapping up the session. So all the other questions that you are not, due to the time constraint, that you are not able to take, probably they can ask you over your LinkedIn. They can
Yeah,
write.
absolutely. Feel free to send me on my LinkedIn. My email ID is rajatjulka at gmail, rajatjulka at gmail.com. I'll be more than happy to sort of, respond back and reply to all of your questions.
All right. Thank you so much, Rajat, for a
All right, thank
wonderful
you, Shreya.
session.
Yep.
It was
Thank you,
interesting.
everyone. I hope that I was able to justify the time investment in that too, especially on the weekend.
Thank you so much, Rajat.
Thank you. Bye.